Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today, well, it's pretty sharp. We are plunging right into a really spectacular moment of chaos. 499 HKC.
That's right.
Trying to understand how this completely bizarre event, the Davayre Blacksword coup, managed to just instantly detonate the Sixth Antler War.
Yeah, and it's so important we look at this not just as, some historical detail. It's a classic case study. Instability 101, almost.
Right.
Our sources, they paint this picture of a long-standing stalemate, multipolar, a region just exhausted by war. And then, boom, fragile peace shattered, single act of violence.
And that's some grand strategy.
No, not at all. That's what's fascinating. It wasn't political ambition in the usual sense.
Yeah.
It was personal, almost unbelievable obsession driving it.
Obsession.
And the big powers, they didn't fight the chaos. They saw their moment, calculated how to leverage it.
Okay. Let's set the scene first, before this explosion.
Right.
What did the realm look like in 499 HKC?
Well, you have the former Union Kingdom of Daconia-Ryden, fractured, deeply scarred after the Fifth Antler War.
A power vacuum, essentially.
Exactly. The old kings are gone. The heirs, their children, King Gorion and Princess Demais.
How old are we talking?
Tiny, 7 and 6 years old.
Wow, just kids.
And these kids, they symbolize the two great factions that had torn the kingdom apart. The Brollanids and the Raphaelids.
Always fighting.
Always. And keeping the heartland, Chresmere, together, managing these royal children, that job fell to Lord Tarloi Vemoya. He was the linchpin.
The guy holding it all together. And he had a plan for stability, right? Something long-term.
He did. It was kind of elegant, actually, and probably the only thing that could have saved them.
Which was?
Unite the factions. Permanently. Through the betrothal of Gorion and Demais. The marriage itself was scheduled way out, 508 HKC.
So, a decade away.
Yeah. But the betrothal itself, that sacred promise, that was the single thread of hope. The central authority keeping things from just dissolving into anarchy right then and there. Tarlor, because he managed that, was the most important man in the kingdom.
Until the linchpin wasn't just removed, it was, well, violently snapped. By nobody.
Pretty much, yeah.
Let's talk about Davayre Blacksword. The name, it sounds like something out of a legend. But who was this guy who just seized the regency?
The sources are pretty clear on this. Davayre was absolutely not nobility, not even close.
Okay.
He was a disgraced adventurer, a former mercenary captain, maybe drummed out of service after some past war. And his motives, deeply personal.
The obsession you mentioned.
Exactly. Rooted in this, frankly deranged, all-consuming obsession with the former Queen Creillyce, King Gorion's mother.
Oh, wow.
He genuinely believed, it seems, that he was destined to rescue her from Chresmere and that she'd then help him seize the throne through some kind of deceit.
So a major geopolitical crisis triggered by, essentially a creepy delusion. That's quite a starting point.
It really is.
But how does a disgraced mercenary, a non-noble, driven by madness, actually manage to infiltrate and take control of Chresmere, the central city, seat of the heirs?
Through the fringes, the dregs, really. He put together this group he called, bizarrely, the Bold Company.
Bold Company.
Yeah, and it was mostly Nemestri, that's the term for the outcasts, the criminals, lawless folk, deserters, a whole underclass.
So not exactly knights in shining armor.
Not even close. His main guys were a corrupt fixer named Mogget and a really notorious highwayman, Sisimogan. He brought brigands, escaped convicts. It wasn't an army. It was more like an organized criminal gang.
And the infiltration wasn't a big battle, more like a con.
Exactly. Subtle. A long game. His lieutenant, this guy Kothler, he managed to get a post in the garrison, posed as a loyal Rollanid officer.
Okay, an inside man.
Right. And from there, Davayre's men just slipped in, disguised as guards, artisans, sometimes even pilgrims. They just blended into the city's population, which was already swollen after the war.
And Davayre himself, his own infiltration is something else, according to this.
Oh, it's one of the weirdest details. He apparently ran out of money, so he murdered a family of serfs. Yeah, murdered them, took their savings, and staged it to look like a troll attack. Used that blood money to get into Chresmere.
That's grim.
It is, and the sources say he used several disguises to get inside the inner castle, including, and this is just unbelievable, posing as a washerwoman at one point.
A washerwoman. To get near the queen.
Apparently. To get access to the kitchens, then closer to the royal chambers.
The mental image there. It just tells you everything about the sheer delusion involved. Okay, so this is the moment. His whole plan, the murders, the chaos, it all hinges on Queen Creillyce welcoming him as her savior. What happens when he finally gets to her in Gorion's chambers?
The delusion hits a brick wall. Reality. Queen Creillyce, she was horrified. Far from embracing him, she immediately denounced him, called him a madman, flatly rejected his claims of love, of destiny.
Wow, so the entire reason for the coup just evaporated the second he succeeded.
Pretty much. But the military part, the violence, that was already rolling.
Beflair's men.
Yeah. Whether Cathler knew about the rejection upstairs or not, who knows? But his men started the attack. They hit a Rollanid garrison, but, and this is key, they were shouting false war cries.
False cries, why?
To frame Mauran II's faction, the pretender.
Wait, so they didn't just attack the loyalists, they deliberately caused maximum confusion, framed a third party. This wasn't just about taking power, it was about sowing utter chaos.
Absolutely. Pure destruction of internal trust. And the result was instant. Devastating. A massive brawl breaks out inside the castle. It's known as the chaos of Aumbris XXX.
A civil melee.
Totally. Rollanid, Raphaelid, Mauranid loyalists all suddenly fighting each other, each thinking the others were traitors pulling off some secret plot. Thousands died, just butchering each other in the confusion.
And in that carnage, Tarloir.
Lord Tarloir and his lady Nimprice. Butchered by Cathler's assassins. The linchpin, gone.
And Blacksword. He's just been rejected by his obsession. What does he do?
He emerges, walks out into the city square, apparently looking completely self-assured in front of all the terrified townsfolk.
And says what?
Claims he saved Chresmere, saved it from this massive betrayal, and that he defeated Mauran's invading army, which was, of course, pure fiction.
The lie.
A total lie. He then takes the title Lord Protector and swears loyalty to the terrified child heirs right there.
Okay, this is the part that feels really counterintuitive. You've got a madman, backed by criminals, seizing power, murdering the regent. Logically, the whole kingdom should rise up against him, right?
We would think so.
But they didn't. Why? Why did most of Deconia seem weirdly stable under this known usurper?
This is where the sources offer this fascinating synthesis. Most of the regional garrisons, places like Tacy, Raffi, Jerelemy, they did not rebel against Chresmere.
They didn't? What did they do?
They sent more knights and pikemen to Chresmere.
To reinforce the murderer. Why?
Because their loyalty ultimately wasn't to Tarloir the man, or even to Blacksword the usurper. Their loyalty was to the idea, to the sacred betrothal, to Gorion and Tamais. The murder of Tarloir was horrific, yes. But the immediate, overwhelming fear across the whole fragmented kingdom was reigniting the full-blown Antler Wars.
So Tarloir's plan, the 508 HKC marriage, it had become bigger than the man himself.
Exactly. People feared chaos more than they feared Blacksword. He was this awful figure, but he was in Chresmere with the heirs, pledging loyalty to them.
So just by being in the right place and saying the right words, he accidentally becomes the devil they knew. Yeah. Compared to total collapse.
Precisely. A convenient, if terrifying, placeholder. This is why the common folk, the Kilniari nobility, they sort of leaned towards supporting him. They just wanted that royal betrothal secured above all else.
Not everyone, though.
Not everyone. The garrison at Verriara significantly called it a brazen usurpation. They immediately pledged 600 soldiers to Mauran II, the main pretender.
And you see smaller players making calculations, too. House Talfin.
Oh, yeah. They jumped on the bandwagon fast, swore fealty to Davayre as they called him, almost instantly.
Why so quick?
They needed help. They'd just lost the town of Tasmedine. Their support wasn't about believing in Blacksword, it was pure military necessity. They saw Chresmere, under any authority, as their best bet for reinforcements.
And other regions.
The Amatiniari, the Uliniari, they were just terrified of more upheaval. They basically just prayed Blacksword would rule with some kind of temperance. Unlikely, but they hoped.
And Blacksword's inner circle, they knew how to play on this fear.
They did. His treasurer, a man named Brollan, turned out to be pretty sharp politically. He immediately sent letters out to all garrison commanders.
Demanding loyalty?
No, that's the clever bit. The letters urged them to remain true to Gorion and Tamais, not to Blacksword himself.
Clever PR.
Very. It secured just enough domestic stability right when everything could have fallen apart.
Okay, so stability bought with fear, basically. Let's start outside now. The big rivals. Ryden, Volatile, Mauran II, watching Deconia like wolves. How did they read this coup?
Cynically, and with calculation, every single one.
Let's start with Ryden, King Hamlock.
Hamlock immediately predicted Blacksword would fail. I saw the whole thing as just the result of Deconia's own folly. He actually said, until midwinter, and that is being generous.
So writing him off immediately.
Completely, and already talking to his commanders about whether Ryden should step in again to save them, which, you know, for Ryden usually means annexation.
Right. Opportunity knocks.
Hmm.
What about volatile? Prince Davayre. He played it differently.
A deeper game. Much more complicated. On the surface, he recognized Blacksword as regent, but at the same time, he called for mustering banners, preparing for war.
Why the mixed signals?
Davayre's analysis, which we have recorded, is really interesting. He just dismissed Blacksword himself, called him a fool, a madman of little wit, a pawn.
A pawn. In whose game?
Davayre believed the coup was secretly orchestrated by King Gorion of the West Lyori
Rychar? Why?
to deliberately weaken Chresmere, soften it up for Mauran II's invasion.
So Davayre suspected a conspiracy between Mauran and Roychar.
Yes. He thought Mauran would invade Daconia, and Reuchar would use the chaos to grab the western territory of Silas. That they had some secret deal. It just shows how the big powers immediately saw high-level strategy behind what was, actually, just one madman's personal quest.
So Voltai's plan was twofold. Prepare for war with Mauran, but also offer aid to Chresmere.
Correct. Prepare for war and send Count Carthor Vifaque with cavalry to Chresmere, ostensibly to help the sane men still there. But, and this is the real kicker, the personal aha moment from the sources.
Go on.
Davayre's real urgency wasn't strategic, it was familial.
Familial.
His secret orders to Carthor were crystal clear. Ensure the safe passage of his sister, Creillyce Dorsina, and his nephew, King Gorion, back to Castron, back home to Voltaire.
Because of Blacksword's obsession.
Exactly. Davayre understood that Davayre's delusion, this belief that Creillyce loved him, that she was destined to be his queen, made Blacksword an immediate, unpredictable, and lethal threat to her. More dangerous in that personal sense than Mauran's entire army.
Wow. That completely reframes Voltai's reaction. The most dangerous thing wasn't the coup's military impact, but the leader's sheer instability.
Precisely. Davayre had a political problem, Mauran, but his immediate action was driven by the fact his sister was trapped with an unstable, obsessed murderer. Rescue became the priority. The personal absurdity drove the state's response.
Meanwhile, Mauran II, Perede. Tarloy was his main rival blocking his claim. Tarloy is dead. Mauran must have seen this as his chance.
Oh, absolutely. He saw the chaos in Chresmere not as a danger, but as a wide-open door. He declared famously, "The time for waiting is done."
And decided to attack when?
Immediately, that winter. He even argued his Thryman men fight best in the cold. He wasn't going to let Blacksword consolidate. He was seizing the vacuum.
And the actual declarations of war. Pure political theater. Right, Mauran's proclamation from Rolmy.
Classic positioning. Mauran presents himself as the noble protector, intervening because the children, Gorion and Tamais, are gravely endangered by the madness now reigning.
Playing the hero.
Totally. He urged commanders serving Blacksword, who he actually misidentified in the letter, interestingly, to switch sides. Join the true Union Kingdom. Restore order. A very calculated, formal appeal to reason.
And Blacksword's response from Chresmere? I'm guessing it wasn't quite so reasonable.
Not even slightly. This is where the madness just boils over onto the geopolitical stage. Davayre's proclamation was, well, shockingly vulgar, really aggressive.
Like what?
It called Mauran a vile half-troll bastard, the scourge of the earth, the architect of the Antler Wars, just insult after insult.
Okay.
And it climaxed with this demand that Mauran come and beg for mercy at the feet of Lady Creillyce.
Creillyce, the one who just denounced him.
The very same. He threatened Mauran with his black sword and called him a vile cockroach.
Sending that to a major rival king, that's not diplomacy. That's just spewing personal rage using a royal seal.
It's diplomatic catastrophe, driven entirely by Davayre's personal, rejected obsession, and it sealed the deal. It guaranteed war. The sources even record Mauran II's reaction when he got this completely unhinged letter.
What did he say? How did he react to being called a cockroach?
Very coolly, apparently. He just remarked, that scribe of his has had too many sips of wine for his own good.
Yeah, understated.
And then simply, we shall begin mustering our banners. The line was crossed. First day of the 10th month, 499 HKC, the Sixth Antler War officially began. So if we pull all those threads together, this huge, devastating conflict, the Sixth Antler War, it wasn't triggered by some grand strategy or a calculated political move in the usual sense. It was triggered by delusional pawns, chaotic, murder-fueled, personally obsessed coup, which was then immediately seized upon by the real political players like Mauran and Davayre. Blacksword's madness became the perfect cover for everyone else's long-term ambitions.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? I mean, For you, the listener, how often do major conflicts erupt not from clear strategic goals or succession disputes, but from something deeply personal, an obsession, mental instability, sheer political convenience? And what happens when the major powers see that instability, recognize it for what it is, and instead of trying to contain it, they choose to exploit it for their own gain? It's a sobering thought.
Really is.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into that precise moment when chaos became the engine driving history in the shattered kingdom of Daconia. We hope you'll join us next time. Welcome. Today we're diving into a really fascinating moment in Daconian history. It perfectly shows how, well, political chaos and strategic timing can just explode.
Absolutely. A declaration of war meets an immediate military catastrophe. It's quite the story.
We're looking at the very start of the Sixth Antler War, specifically the plans and maybe more importantly the blunders around Rollomy and Chresmere. This is deep winter, 499 HKC.
It's an incredible study, really. You've got institutional dysfunction just crashing headlong into focused aggression.
So our mission today is to unpack that, look at the strategies, the key players.
Exactly. We need to pull apart Mauran II's strategy, he's the aggressor here, and contrast it with the, let's say, fractured response from the Unity faction.
Under the new regent, Davayre evasive, who was erratic.
That's putting it mildly. Highly erratic. And leading this so-called Unity faction.
Okay, set the scene for us. The geography matters here, right?
Hugely. You have Rollomy, maybe 8,000 people. Then Chresmere, the big prize, 22,000 souls. Political center, military hub.
And they're close.
Just 60 miles apart. Separated by a plain, but crucially by the 5-mile-wide Lake Varia. Normally, in summer, marching between them takes, 5, maybe 7 days?
Okay, but the politics. That was the real tinderbox.
Oh, absolutely. The Unity faction wasn't exactly stable before the war started. They were still reeling.
Right, this was just months after the Blacksword coup. That was the 30th of Aumbris.
Yes, and Lord Tarloy died in that coup. Davayre grabbed the regency right after, and let's be frank, a lot of that was driven by his known obsession with the former Queen Creillyce.
So, stability, zero.
Pretty much zero. And that chaos, well, that was Mauran II's signal, his green light.
He was waiting for an edge.
He was smart. He didn't move until he had a real, tangible advantage. And that came when the Varyara garrison defected. That was critical.
How many men was that?
600 veterans. Seasoned troops. So while the Unity faction was crumbling, Mauran saw his chance. This fleeting moment, maybe his best chance.
And the decision to launch in winter. That feels bold. Counterintuitive, even.
It was a calculated gamble. Mauran knew winter. He'd served in the Lower Thraim harshlands. He saw the cold not as a problem, but as an opportunity, a shield against a slow enemy.
Because his troops were different.
Exactly. He had the tools, his forces were specialized. Think about it. Typical Daconian armies, summer, maybe 25 miles a day.
Slow going.
Right. But Mauran's Thrauming units, they were on skis, fast across snow, faster than regular cavalry in those conditions.
And supplies.
On sleds, which meant they weren't tied to roads needing to be clear, a huge advantage.
So what kind of speed are we talking?
He figured instead of 5 to 7 days to Chresmere, his guys could do 35, maybe 40 miles a day, even 50 potentially if conditions were perfect.
Wow. So the original plan was?
A lightning strike, 2 or 3 days march, hit Chresmere hard while Davayre was still, figuring things out, maybe even cross the frozen Lake Varia directly.
A crippling surprise blow.
That was the goal. But then, the weather. You can plan everything, but you can't command the skies. It was mild, fickle. The lake just wouldn't freeze solid enough for that direct crossing he wanted. Not until the 17th day of Aselith, the 12th month.
That delay. That must have been a blow to morale. And tactically huge, he loses the surprise element.
It was definitely a setback, yeah. But Mauran showed his discipline here. He pivoted. Okay, the direct lake crossing. Too risky now, too unreliable.
So, new plan.
New plan. March. 5,000 men slightly west, to Primestay. Cross the river Varia there on a bridge, presumably more stable, and then hit Chresmere from the northwest.
So it shifts. From a quick knockout punch to trying to force a fight.
Exactly. Draw them out. Provoke the Unity faction into a winter battle on land where his ski troops had the advantage.
And he used the delay for internal politics too, didn't he?
He had to. Many of his officers were still loyal to the old leader, Bloodhorn, who had died. Mauran spent time rallying them, arguing Daconia needed a proven commander, meaning him now. He was shoring up his own support while waiting for the river crossing.
Okay, so Mauran is adapting, managing his officers, waiting. Meanwhile, back in Chresmere, what's happening? They had a decent number of troops, didn't they?
They did, on paper, about 7,000 troops in Chresmere, including some really elite Voltaigne cavalry under Carthoir of Ifakai, a top commander.
But the city was.
Actively disintegrating, it was a swamp of dysfunction, despite the numbers.
And Carthoir.
Yeah.
His mission wasn't just military, was it? There was more going on with volatile.
No, it was layered. Prince Davayre of Volatile. He recognized Davayre's regency, but he clearly thought Davayre was unstable. Delusional, even.
So Carthoir had a side mission.
Critical one. Get the royal children, King Gorion and Lady Creillyce, out. Spirit them away to Castrand for safety. Davayre was deeply worried about Davayre's obsession with Creillyce.
Which means military focus was diluted.
Non-existent, almost. The Regency Council told commanders the city was well stocked for a siege, but when they actually checked, disaster.
What did they find?
3 out of 4 main grain and supply warehouses, gutted, destroyed back during the Aumbris 30 insurrection.
And the treasurer, Brollan.
Described as a flighty-eyed youth. He was evasive, contradictory, basically useless about the massive supply shortage.
So the command structure is just broken before the fighting even starts.
Completely shattered. Carthoir, probably their most capable commander, couldn't even get an audience with Regent Davayre. Said Davayre was flustered and tense.
Who did he talk to?
He ended up with Pelin, the City Watch commander, and Pelin. Well, he apparently stammered, refused to share any actual defense plans.
Refused. Why?
Get this, he said, better they remain in the dark so we can surprise them. Surprise the enemy by not coordinating your own defense. It's baffling.
It sounds like total paralysis. Or worse.
Oh, it gets worse. The rot went deep. Carthoir eventually met Commander Cauthlaire, who was nominally in charge of the city's defense.
And Cautlaire's reaction to the food crisis.
He scoffed, laughed it off, and then made this unbelievably crude joke, suggesting if things got bad, they could just declare the Emitiniari, the city's burghers, the guilders, traders, and then kidnap, cook, and eat them.
He actually suggested cannibalism of their own citizens.
As a jest, perhaps, but it speaks volumes about the mindset, the moral collapse.
No wonder Carthoir's reports back to Volatile were grim.
Absolutely damning. He wrote about plots, collapsing morale, leaders refusing to talk to each other, desertions hitting maybe 1,000 men already, and worse. Rumors that 3 commanders had been killed by their own men. Accusations of Mauranid sympathy flying around.
The whole place was imploding.
Precisely. And into this mess walks Davayre, arriving on the 20th day of the 12th month, just as Mauran's vanguard is hitting Primist.
And Davayre's army wasn't exactly disciplined either.
It was a mob. Disorganized, he'd bypassed many senior commanders, put his own loyalists, maybe less competent people, in charge.
And its first big decision.
Pure impulse. Staggering, really. He gathers nearly 4,000 men, and ignoring all the warnings about the ice that had already stopped Mauran, he orders them to march that night across Lake Voria.
Across the lake. After Mauran decided it was too risky?
Yes. A 3-mile crossing on unreliable ice. His plan. Hit Rolamy from the rear. He was apparently hoping the moon wouldn't rise so they'd have cover. It was just a desperate gamble.
Did anyone try to stop him? Carthoir?
Carthoir knew it was madness. He couldn't talk Davayre down, but he prepared for the fallout. He took 600 of his pikemen to secure the Primus Bridge, the sensible crossing point.
And his cavalry.
Sent his 400 Voltaigne cavalry off on their other mission. Find Creillyce and Gorion, protect the kids. He basically washed his hands of Davayre's ice march.
So Davayre's main force sets off. But the real disaster happened behind them, right? The rear guard?
Yes. The rearguard action, or inaction, is where the true horror unfolds. It was led by Captain Cortain Vimelli.
A loyalist of the old regime. Tarloyer.
Exactly. He'd ridden out actually intending to try and impose some order, maybe even take command from Davayre's favorites if necessary. A tragic figure.
What happened to them?
Cortain was leading about 1,300 men. Crucially, this included 800 cavalry and the heavy supply train sleds loaded with vital firewood. Then, heavy wet snow started falling.
Weakening the ice further.
The ice was already stressed from Davayre's main group passing over it. Add the weight of the supply sleds, the cavalry. It just broke. Catastrophically.
Oh, God. How many?
Immediate, horrifying loss. 900 men, dragged down into the freezing water, gone.
900.
And it wasn't over. The few survivors, wretched, freezing, managed to struggle back towards Chresmere.
And they were met by?
Commander Coughflair. Yes, the same guy who joked about eating burgers. He saw figures emerging from the snowy darkness across the ice.
And thought they were enemies, raiders.
Mistook them for northern raiders. He ordered his men on the walls to fire a deadly volley into the survivors.
Friendly fire, after all that.
Killed another 119 of their own men before anyone realized the mistake. In one night, the Unity faction effectively lost over 1,000 soldiers to ice and their own incompetence.
Unbelievable. Meanwhile, Davayre's main force, the ones who made it across.
They actually had relatively light losses crossing the ice, maybe 90 men. They reached Vorymist on the northern shore.
But it wasn't exactly a triumphant arrival.
Hardly. His force was full of brigands from Nalmonth, conscripted criminals. Their first act was to sack the town and castle. Immediate looting.
And the locals.
Interesting social dynamic here. The Uliniari, the local peasantry, and the Numestri, the outcasts, they actually joined in the looting against the Amatiniari, the town elite, who clearly hadn't fared well under Davayre's rule either.
Then Davayre does.
What? This grotesque parody of leadership accuses the townsfolk of treason against Queen Creillyce, then offers them a pardon if they join his army.
Join his army. How?
He had them chained together, gave them makeshift weapons, literally doors, tabletops, forced them to march with his host towards Primisty. Just turned civilians into instant, unwilling cannon fodder.
This whole operation is dissolving into barbarity. What was Mauran doing while all this was happening?
Well, Mauran heard about this disastrous lake crossing. And honestly, he didn't believe it.
Didn't believe it.
He thought it had to be a feint, some kind of diversion. He just couldn't imagine any commander being that reckless, sending thousands over ice he himself knew was bad.
So his own caution made him misread the enemy's incompetence.
Kind of, yeah. His skepticism led to his next, miscalculation. He split his forces.
How so?
He left 1,200 of his best heavy infantry under his son Andrik back at Primisty. He still thought the real attack, the main thrust, must be coming via the bridge.
Which ironically helped him in a way.
It did, because Davayre's force was already disintegrating. Mauran's troops started capturing lots of these scattered, demoralized soldiers, especially the brigands and conscripts Davayre had forced into service. Many were easily persuaded to switch sides.
They're not the nobles.
No, the captured noble officers refused Mauran's offers. Loyalty, or perhaps pride, still held there.
What happened next? Was there a battle?
Not really a pitched battle. More chaos. Davayre lost about 200 pikemen in a skirmish near Crevamity. After that, he just ordered a general withdrawal.
But withdrawal sounds too organized for this situation.
Exactly. There was no structure. His forces just scattered, became fragmented bands of starving men wandering the landscape.
Starving? Because of the supply situation back in Chresmere.
Precisely. The lack of food, thanks to Treasurer Brollan and the looted warehouses, hit hard. Our sources say Davayre's men were reduced to eating. Well, they called them snowball sandwiches.
Snowball sandwiches? What on earth is that?
Moss scraped off trees, apparently mixed with bits of raw meat they could scavenge, all packed together, led to widespread disease, dysentery, just misery.
So Mauran, he didn't get the big winter battle he wanted after all.
No. Strategically, it was confusing for him. Instead of one army to fight, he's facing scattered groups of Gorionid soldiers popping up, harrying his scouts. Disorganized, but still a nuisance.
And the locals complicated things too.
Yes. The Uliniari, the peasants, they actually formed their own militias. Not for Mauran, but to defend their villages against the Goronids who were looting and falsely claiming to be Mauran's men.
So Davayre's incompetence actually created a different kind of resistance. Decentralized, chaotic.
Exactly. It wasn't easier for Mauran, just messier, less predictable. He couldn't effectively pursue in the deepening snowstorm against this kind of scattered opposition.
What did he do?
He had to halt his main advance, called for reinforcements to consolidate at Primisty, and basically wait it out. The enemy self-destructed, but threw up a cloud of chaos in the process.
So let's wrap this up. What does this whole disastrous episode tell us? The Sixth Antler War kicks off not with a bang, but with internal collapse.
Pretty much friendly fire, drowning, starvation, an army eating moss and raw meat. The Unity faction basically crippled itself right out of the gate.
Though, as you said, their sheer incompetence created this weird, decentralized problem for Mauran. Not the clean fight he expected.
It's a stark lesson, isn't it? All the geopolitics, Voltai's conditional support, Rydney looking down on them, none of that mattered compared to the immediate, paralyzing dysfunction inside Davayre's regency.
It was all internal failures. Davayre's obsession, Brollan's corruption.
The missing supplies, the command breakdown, Cathlaire's horrifying attitude. They did more damage to themselves in days than Mauran could have hoped to achieve in weeks.
Mauran played it safe, avoided being reckless like Ormkir before him.
He did. But it raises a fascinating question, doesn't it? If your enemy is literally falling apart, drowning themselves, eating moss, shooting their own men, how much does your own brilliant strategy matter?
Do you need the perfect plan? Or just patience?
Right. Or maybe just the good sense to stand back and watch the self-destruction unfold, even if it makes things messy for a while.
It makes you think, how often are big strategic wins really just about avoiding the other side's catastrophic mistakes? Something for you to ponder, perhaps, next time you see leadership favoring chaos over coherence. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're taking a stack of sources covering the final, really chaotic months of the Sixth Antler War.
Yeah, we're digging into the absolute strategic mess that was the end of 499 HKC.
And trying to distill how exactly power shifts in that kind of total chaos.
Our focus today is squarely on the conclusion of the war and, well, the frankly shocking victory of the usurper, Lord Protector Davayre the Blacksword.
Right. He starts the whole thing with the Blacksword coup, grabs Chresmere, and somehow, against all odds, manages to beat the much more established, strategically stronger Mauran II.
And it's crucial to understand who Davayre is, or rather, who he isn't. This victory just seems almost unbelievable given his background.
He's not a legitimate noble, is he? He's described as a foreign adventurer. Sources say he was obsessed with Queen Creillyce.
Exactly. And his forces. The sources call them Nemesinstry outcasts.
Numestry.
Yeah.
What do they actually mean in this context?
Well, it essentially means stateless mercenaries, brigands, smugglers, people without strong loyalties or official standing. It just underlines how desperate Davayre's situation was initially. Strategically, he really should have been crushed months earlier.
Absolutely. So we're picking up the story right after this disaster, the calamity of Lake Foria. This was around the 21st of the 12th month, late 499 HKC.
A terrible moment for Davayre. His forces tried this ill-advised crossing on lake ice. It wasn't thick enough.
Fracturing ice, yeah.
Yeah.
And nearly 900 of his men just drowned.
Yeah.
Gone.
His army was shattered after that. What was left was scattered, starving. There are these horrible descriptions of them eating raw meat mixed with snowball sandwiches, they called them.
Grim. So realistically, how many fighting men did he even have left?
Mauran II's own intelligence estimated Davayre commanded maybe 1,500 effective soldiers at this point. So Mauran sees this, sees the decimation, and naturally thinks, okay, the usurper's finished, time to press the advantage.
Makes sense. So our mission today, then, is to trace how Davayre survived this. We're looking at two really key rapid battles, Premystilde and Pizéacolne.
And we'll see how his survival, his eventual victory, wasn't really about his own military genius. It hinged almost entirely on, well, securing allies through massive political concessions or just sheer unpredictable treachery from others.
Okay, let's start with Premystilde. This happens fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the 21st day of the last month, a Seleth, same year, 499 HKC.
Right. The key objective here is the bridgehead over the Vari River at Premystilde.
And we have Count Carthuar Fakai arriving. He's leading the Voltan, the Unity host. Their main goal isn't even fighting Davayre's war for him, is it?
No, not primarily. They're there trying to extract Queen Creillyce and the young King Gorion, get them to safety away from the fighting. But when they arrive at Premystilde...
It's already held by Mauran's son, Andrek Perede.
Exactly. Andrek's holding this crucial bridge. His scouts, though, seem to have badly underestimated Carthuar's arriving force. They reported fewer than 1,000, mostly lighter infantry.
And his father, Mauran, sent urgent orders.
Ah.
What were they?
Mauran was clear. Evacuate, pull back, fortify elsewhere.
Mauran understood that dragging things out, using time, was their best bet.
But Andrek, he didn't listen.
Not at all. Sources paint him as full of youthful pride, maybe overconfidence. He completely disregarded the command. Instead, he dug in, entrenched his pikemen, threw up barricades. He thought he could crush this smaller force right there and win some glory.
So Carthor, seeing the position fortified, he doesn't really have a choice but to attack, does he?
No, he has to try and break through. The initial fighting actually went pretty well for the Mauranids. They had close to 700 men ready on the bank. Andrek, full of energy, led his cavalry personally.
In those wedge formations.
Yes, 3 wedge formations. And they hit hard. They actually shattered the Voltaigne center. Carthor's forces were driven back. For a moment, it looked like a clear Mauranid victory was unfolding.
Okay, but this is where things get weird, unexpected.
Very unexpected. Dawn breaks on the 22nd, and suddenly, appearing behind the tree line, are 800 Ridney bowmen. Ridney? From Redney, what are they doing there? And the sources mention their bows.
Yes, the singing Tarlani bows. These were formidable weapons, known for range and power, and the air just filled with the sound of their arrows.
So they jump in to help Carthor rally.
Well, not exactly. This is the truly bizarre part. They started unleashing these deadly, relentless volleys, but the arrows fell, well, almost indiscriminately.
What do you mean?
They were hitting both sides, the advancing Mauranids and the retreating Voltaigne forces under Carthor. The sheer surprise, the chaos, and the fact that arrows were raining down on everyone just shattered the Mauranid morale completely.
Hold on. Why on earth would the Ridney under King Hamlock intervene like that? And seemingly on behalf of Davayre, who was basically broke and leading mercenaries.
This is where we see Davayre's fin. Let's go call it political maneuvering. Or maybe just desperate luck finding an opportunity. He didn't win this alliance with force.
How did he do it then?
He'd secretly sent a brigand, one of his less reputable contacts named Throlian, to King Hamlock. The offer, 20 golden crowns.
20 crowns. That seems incredibly cheap to secure a kingdom's intervention in a major battle.
It does seem cheap for the military aid, but the gold wasn't the main point. Davayre's real offer, the sweetener, was full political recognition of Raiden's sovereignty from the Draconian regency he claimed to represent.
Okay, so Hamlock wasn't really interested in helping Davayre win, necessarily.
Probably not. Hamlock's motive was pure strategy, very shrewd. Mauran II actually had fairly strong dynastic claims to rule Raiden himself. So by intervening, Hamlock achieves several things. He weakens both Draconian pretenders.
Keeping them busy fighting each other.
Exactly. He signals to everyone that he prefers dealing with a regency, Davayre's theoretical regency, which is obviously weak and tied up in internal chaos.
Rather than risk a strong, victorious Mauran II turning his attention to Raiden later.
Precisely. So Hamlock pays almost nothing in real terms, gets his kingdom's sovereignty publicly acknowledged by one Draconian faction, and helps ensure that Draconia remains internally divided and weak. It's brilliant, really, from his perspective.
Extremely shrewd. So this chaotic Ridney intervention, despite hitting both sides, ultimately allows Carthor to rally.
Yes, the Mauranid attack just collapses under the arrow storm and confusion. Carthor rallies his men, they retake the village, secure the bridge, and the biggest prize, Andrekve Perede, Mauran's son and heir, is captured alive, taken by Tamarain Vicaridor, one of Carthor's captains.
Wow. That's a massive blow to Mauran II's cause, losing his son and heir like that.
Huge. Strategically and morally devastating for Mauran. But the chaos, as you said, it just continues.
Because after Premistilde, Carthor's main goal is still to find the Queen in Gorion, right?
Right. His Voltaigne cavalry are scouring the countryside for Queen Creillyce and the young king, but they've, quote, vanished like wraiths.
Vanished. Where could they have gone? Or who might have moved them?
Well, Davayre had supposedly promised to protect them. The fact they disappear right when Carthor tries to extract them, it doesn't look good. It seems Davayre might have preempted the Voltaigne move and hidden them himself.
And this is when the political situation gets even murkier, isn't it? With those rumors starting to spread.
Exactly. This is where the political poison really starts to work. Troubling whispers begin circulating. And importantly, the sources suggest these rumors came from Davayre's own circle, people supposedly allied with him, but deeply suspicious of his motives.
What was the rumor?
The story was that Davayre had secretly promised Queen Creillyce's hand in marriage and young King Gorion as a ward to King Roichar II of West Lyori.
West Lyori. Meaning Roichar would effectively become the power behind the Draconian throne. The rightful king, even.
That was the implication. It painted Davayre not as a loyal protector fighting for Gorion, but as someone willing to sell out Draconia to hand it over to West Lyori, basically making Roichar II the puppet master.
That's incredibly damaging, suggesting he'd sacrifice the entire royal family's independence.
Devastating. And this rumor, this specific accusation involving West Lyori, becomes absolutely critical just a few days later.
Okay, so meanwhile, Davayre himself is scrambling. He's gearing up for what will be the decisive battle, the Battle of Pessac-Alnay. That's set for the 26th of last month.
Right. And he's still operating on pure bluff and deception. He managed to seize the town of Daly, not by force, but by trickery.
How did he manage that?
He pretended his forces were actually transporting wounded Mauranid soldiers needing shelter. The town let them in, and boom, he seized control. That's where he gathered his remaining troops, including his hardened Amante warriors.
He's living dangerously. And didn't he survive something else just before the battle?
Yes, incredible luck. Or maybe paranoia saved him. The night before Pessac-Alnay, assassins slipped into his camp. They repeatedly stabbed the pillows in his command pavilion.
But he wasn't there.
No, he'd chosen, maybe on a whim, maybe out of suspicion, to rest in a humble farmhouse nearby instead. Pure chance, it seems.
Unbelievable survival instinct, or just dumb luck. But strategically, his position is still terrible, right? He doesn't have the numbers.
Absolutely dire. He had to resort to blatant lies to keep his own troops from despairing. He told them he commanded 5,000 men and that a large reserve force under a commander named Cauflair was nearby, ready to swoop in.
When the reality was.
The reality, as Mauran scouts correctly estimated, was fewer than 1,500 fighting men. And his actual reserve, it was pathetic. 50 disciplinarian riders under the Sessimogan, basically nothing.
Did anyone know the truth?
He apparently admitted the grim reality only to his last remaining loyal cavalry commander, Valien ve Aramis. He told him, "All we must do is hold our ground for but an hour, and then Cauflair shall deliver us."
A complete fabrication, delivered as if it were actual strategy.
A brazen lie. So with this tiny demoralized force, he arrayed them for battle. A very shallow pike line, only 2 men deep, stretched out in a crescent shape below the height of Pessac-Alnay.
Mauran II must have looked down at that deployment and felt pretty confident.
Utterly confident. He saw Davayre's army for what it was, a fragile, desperate shell. Mauran planned a classic sound maneuver.
What was the plan?
Feign a strong assault on Davayre's center to draw in his already thin line, make them commit everything there. Then use his own superior cavalry and, crucially, his West Lyori allies to smash both flanks and envelop the whole force. He expected a quick, decisive end to the war right there.
His Lyori allies. Under General Ildvaldi. This is where those rumors come back into play, isn't it?
This is the exact moment, the linchpin, because the battle did not go according to Mauran's plan. Not even close.
What happened?
The West Lyori army, commanded by General Gorion, was supposed to hit Davayre's left flank, but instead, they broke formation from the forest where they were waiting and charged headlong, not at Davayre's forces, but straight into the heart of Mauran II's own main battle line.
What? They attacked their own side?
They attacked their supposed ally, Mauran. Utter chaos erupted. Mauran's center just disintegrated under the unexpected assault from the Lyori.
Why would Gorion do that? Was he secretly allied with Davayre all along?
It's more complex. It comes back to those rumors. Gorion must have calculated, okay, if the whispers are true, if Davayre is planning to hand over Queen Creillyce and Gorion to my king, Richard II of West Lyore.
Then helping Davayre win now guarantees West Lyore controls Daconia later.
Precisely. His loyalty wasn't to Davayre the man, it was to the potential future where his own king, Richard II, benefited from Davayre's supposed secret deal. He was acting on the political poison spread by Davayre's own suspicious allies.
So the rumor itself, true or not, became a self-fulfilling prophecy on the battlefield. Incredible.
Absolutely. And seeing this catastrophe unfold, his Lyori allies attacking his own center, the situation instantly spiraled for Mauran. There was another commander.
Danuc Villerand, Mauran's cavalry commander.
Yes. Danuc saw the Lyori betrayal, saw the Mauran center collapsing. He commanded knights who were secretly still loyal to the memory of the previous king, Brollan III, whom Mauran had essentially overthrown.
The Brollanid loyalists. They hated Mauran.
Oh, deeply. They saw Mauran as the real usurper. So Danuc seized the moment. He ordered his knights to turn their coats literally, in some accounts, reversing their surcoats to show different colors.
A complete turncoat move right there on the field.
Yes. They raised the cry, "For Queen Creillyce and the blood of Brollan." Queen Creillyce being Brollan III's daughter, whose betrothal to Gorion was supposedly what Davayre was fighting for.
So they charge. Where?
Straight into the already crumbling Mauranid center. It was the final nail in the coffin. Mauran's army completely fell apart.
So Davayre, He basically just stood there and watched his enemies destroy each other.
Pretty much. His victory was secured entirely by forces beyond his control. The Ridney intervention, bought by a bribe and political maneuvering, the Lyori betrayal driven by rumors, and the internal revenge plot of Mauran's own cavalry.
How long did the battle even last?
Sources say barely half an hour. It was a complete rout, driven by treachery.
So Davayre stands victorious, against all odds. He and the treacherous Lyori general Grolt, they actually met on the field afterwards.
Yes, the sources describe them embracing as snow began to fall. A very cinematic moment sealing this incredibly unlikely victory.
But the aftermath, it gets dark, doesn't it? Especially concerning Mauran II himself.
Very dark. And it tells you a lot about Davayre's psyche. Mauran II was captured not by Davayre's men, but by soldiers who had, moments before, served him. His severed head was brought to Davayre.
And Davayre, the Blacksword, wasn't happy.
Apparently not. He was reportedly irritated, almost petulant, that he hadn't been the one to personally strike the fatal blow with his famous Blacksword.
Okay, that's unsettling, but it gets worse.
It does. According to the sources, he then hatched this truly macabre, monstrous plan. He wanted to, well, reattach Mauran's head to his corpse.
Why?
So that he, Davayre, could then perform the execution again, personally decapitating Mauran with his own sword.
That's deranged. It speaks volumes about his character. Did he actually do it?
Thankfully, no. Queen Creillyce, who must have been horrified, managed to intervene and dissuade him from this particular act of madness. But the fact that he even seriously considered it tells you everything you need to know about the man now effectively ruling Daconia as regent.
Wow. Okay, so Mauran is dead, definitively. His head is off. What happens next? Does the war just end?
Pretty much immediately, yes. With Mauran gone and his heir captured, the resistance collapses. Towns like Vidonachry and Mendricros are secured quickly. Rolemy, a major center, surrendered on the first day of the new year, Sissy's, 500 HKC.
What about Mauran's other son?
Elbrake.
Elbrake of Perede, Mauran's remaining son, didn't last long. In a final, grim echo of the treachery that defined the war's end, he was arrested and promptly beheaded by his own officers. Loyalty was clearly a very fluid concept.
So that's it. The Sixth Antler War is officially over.
Over. Davayre rode back to the capital, Chresmere, alone initially. He proclaimed his victory.
Represented the Queen and King. Yes, he dramatically laid his honor, such as it was, at Queen Creillyce's feet. Then he presented both her and young King Gorion, whom he had, very shrewdly, kept hidden and safe throughout the final chaotic weeks to the crowds in Chresmere.
And the reaction? Joy, relief.
Initially, yes. Huge relief. The war had been brutal, the city had suffered, the people were ecstatic to see the fighting finished, to see their young king and queen seemingly safe.
But there was an undercurrent.
A definite sense of unease quickly followed the jubilation. People remembered how Davayre came to power, the coup, the violence, the manipulations. His victory felt tainted, unsettling.
But wasn't there something else, a final image from that celebration that really cemented the weirdness of it all?
Yes, this is the final chilling detail the sources give us. Amidst the crowd celebrating the return of peace and the royals, standing openly beside Davayre the regent for the very first time in public view was his personal guardian.
His guardian? Who was it?
A figure named Takor, described as towering, gaunt, and unmistakably a troll.
A troll, standing beside the Lord Protector Regent at the celebration.
Exactly. Imagine the scene. Jubilation mixed with this sudden, visible proof of the strangeness surrounding their new leader.
Okay, let's step back then. If we summarize the central contradiction here.
It's that Davayre, this foreign adventurer, this usurper leading mercenaries, he won, but not through brilliant strategy or superior force. His army was starving, he relied on lies.
You won because of external factors. A mix of brazen lies, incredible survival luck like dodging those assassins, and crucially, the shifting volatile loyalties of others.
Exactly. The Ridney intervention, bought cheap with a political promise. The Lyori betrayal, driven by rumors about Davayre's plotting, and the internal revenge scheme of the Brollan loyalists within Mauran's own army.
So the key takeaway here, maybe for you listening, is how in times of extreme chaos like this, objectives and loyalties can shift incredibly fast.
Right. Success doesn't always go to the strongest. Sometimes it goes to the one who manages somehow to become the preferred lesser evil for just enough key players at the critical moment. Davayre won because for Hamlock, for Grolt, for Danuke, he was, for their own different reasons, a more useful or less threatening outcome than a victorious Mauran II.
So Davayre brings peace, yes. He defeated Mauran, ended the war. But this regency, his power, it's born from that coup, from chaos, from deception, and these very murky alliances and secrets. He might have brought peace, but at what cost? Recognizing Ride, maybe owing a debt to Lyori.
And now with Mauran dead, his rivals eliminated, but with this troll guardian openly at his side, it really leaves you with a final provocative thought.
Which is?
What does the future actually hold now for young King Gorion and for Queen Creillyce, whose betrothal was the symbolic justification for this whole bloody affair? Peace has arrived, but the victor is a ruthless usurper guarded by a monster who holds all the cards. What kind of reign will this be?
A question that definitely hangs heavy over the throne. Something to ponder until our next deep dive.
Read the wind like scripture of the correct. Slits for bread, roads forgotten, banners furled against the blast. But Davayre, Blacksword, black notion, whistled orders to the storm. Summoned militiamen by moonlight, captains left out in the cold. Scattered files across the mirror, hoof and wagon, men and steel. Cortain cried, hold the rear, and heard the give way and fall! Oh, Lyori, black and white, you kept the council winter hides, where prudence measures, folly sings, where crowns are wagered on the rings. One side skates by measured art, one side tumbles broke apart, and still the drums of night beat on. Who calls this war? Who calls it one? Mauran counted miles like coin, 30, 40, 50 flown. Marked the passes, kept a fist at Perede under Aumbris' hand. He split his strength to guard the bridge, sent archers sweeping snow and thorn. Read a feint where fools see glory, trimmed his sails to suit the land. Letters cool as iron dawns, Yeoman men do best in cold. Pikes and drill, horses curtained, messengers with measured tone. And yet the field he met was missed, Gorion in shards in every hedge. Lyori village watch, the sower reaping what was sown. Took them in by storm song or mistaken sign, and outpoured Normans, highway sons, to pillage bread from broken doors. Lyori fled their tills, Lyori cut the cords. Mystery warmed their hands on fires set inside the counting houses floors. Could lay loose the midnight volley, friendly dead upon the shore. Brollan's figures changed with daylight, grain 3/4 turned to ash. Snowball sandwiches, the jest, raw meat, moss, and cuffs of black, carrying liberty like chains, conscripts dragged in rafter sash. Oh, Lyori, and history sly and underfed, crept sideways through the blizzard seam. Skill lay snares with tiny hands, folly stumbled into dread. Holy Maria, black and white, you kept the council winter heights, where prudence measures, folly sings, where crowns are wagered on the red. The tactician sketched the perfect line, the madman danced it blind yet fine. When the thaw bared steel and pine, the tale was bitter stark. For winter fell with Mauran's star, and clamored through the dark. The Davayre Blacksword triumphed there, his